All right, well, welcome everyone to the halftime review. It's our pleasure to be joined by Thomas Grønnemark today, who joins us from Denmark. Thomas currently works among some of the top clubs around the world as a freelance throwing coach, most recently working under Jurgen Klopp with Liverpool FC. We'll be discussing the art of throw-ins today, and Thomas will present his thoughts and ideas throughout the webinar. And as always, please feel free to put your questions in the chat box and we'll fire them over to Thomas. Thomas, many thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So yeah, feel free to go.
Yeah,
Be ready.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just start with a small presentation here. I think it'll take approximately 15 to 20 minutes. Afterwards, there'll be time for questions, and I like to say, as Lloyd said, you can ask about anything. Feel free to write it down in the question area here. But again, just to say, if you want to know more about my throwing coaching, my upcoming book, online courses, and so you're welcome after this to go to thomasgrønnemark.com. But I'll start from the very start. When I was a kid, I was playing football in the local football club in Horsens in Denmark, where I'm coming from. It's me on the left. A lot of people say I'm looking like a young Boris Becker, if you know him from tennis. So, but I was really good at football. I made the highest U19 league in Denmark, and also played against really good players, like, for example, Thomas Grønnemark, who later played for Celtic and Real Madrid. But I wasn't good enough to be a pro footballer. I had a really good throw-in, but I was also very fast. So in the mid-90s, I went to athletics, and the first year I was training, I was on the Danish national team, running 100, 200, 400 meters, also relays. And it was pretty successful on the national teams for 6 years. And the best result I had, I've been Danish champion several times, but the best result was in 2000 in Paris, where me and my relay team from Aarhus 1900 won the European Championship in 4x400 meter relay. It's me who's second from the left looking down. But in 2002, I changed sport, not because I was poor at athletics. I actually set personal records on 100 and 200 this year, but I missed the team sport. So I missed the team spirit from football. So in 2002, I changed to bobsleighing, and I went on the Danish national bobsleigh team. It's me second from the right. And we were traveling all around the world, whole Europe, Canada, the States. And it's me and my team in St. Moritz in January 2006. And it was in the middle of that bobsleigh period in 2004, I thought, hey, if I can make a good throw-in, can't I teach other players to do it? So I went down to my local library and tried to find that book about throw-ins, but there were no books at all. So I thought, hey, I have to make a throwing course myself. So I used approximately 6 months to do that throwing course. And I could have been starting with a youth team or amateur team, but I had the courage to ask a local Superliga team from Denmark called Viborg. And luckily enough, they said yes. And they scored a lot of goals after throw-in situations. They improved a lot, and the club had its best placement in the club's history this season. So it went well, and the year after, in the 2005-06 season, I coached Liverpool FC, and sorry, not Liverpool FC, FC Midtjylland, because Liverpool FC, that was first in 2018. I came to Liverpool in 2018. It was because Jurgen Klopp called me on the phone asking for my help. Jurgen Klopp said that they were very bad at the throw-ins in the 17-18 season, even though they had a good season with a 4th place in the Premier League and Champions League final. So the picture here, you can see me on my very first training day at Melwood. I was training 21 players in the mid of July 2018. It was all the players who weren't injured or at vacation after the World Cup. It's me on the left together with Jurgen Klopp. You can perhaps recognize some of the other players here. So it's been fantastic to work with Liverpool FC and also Jurgen Klopp. I think all of you or most of you know that we've had 2 fantastic seasons in Liverpool with the Champions League victory, and it's looking pretty good in the Premier League this season too. I'm not only coaching Liverpool FC, I'm also coaching a lot of other teams. For example, this picture is from Atlanta United, training camp in Florida 2020. Also coaching this season, Ajax from Holland, Ghent from Belgium, FC Midtjylland from Denmark, and some other professional clubs. I'm also coaching sometimes amateur and youth clubs, and some of you might wonder how can they afford to pay him, but often the clubs are going together in one town and inviting me, or the one club is inviting all the coaches and perhaps also all the players, and then we're doing some throwing specific training and talks. But going over to how much have Liverpool FC improved. When I look at throwing improvement, I'm looking at throw-ins under pressure. That's where throw-ins where all the players are marked. And I'm also looking at goals scored after throw-ins. In the 17-18 season, before I came to Liverpool, Liverpool were only number 18 out of 20 in the Premier League at throw-ins under pressure, with a percentage of 45.4. In my first season in the club, 18-19 season, we improved to 68.4%. We went to number 1 in the Premier League. We also went to number 2 in Europe, just after FC Midtjylland, one of my other teams I'm coaching. We're looking at goals, then we can take this season, 2019-20 seasons. Until now, we scored 13 goals from all over the pitch, from throw-in situations. It's not long throw-ins towards the opponent's goal, because we really don't use that in Liverpool, but it's throw-ins from our own penalty area, the middle of the pitch, the attacking third, but also when the opponents have a throw-in. But here you can see, yeah.
Just going back to the percentages there, do you know the percentage of restarts that occur from a throw-in within a 90-minute game, or the number?
Yeah, well, we know that. We know that normally we have between 40 and 60 throw-ins in a match. I think the average is I can't remember if it's 45 or 47, but normally we have between 40 and 60 throw-ins in a match. Of course, sometimes you can also have 32 or 35, but I've also seen matches with more than 60 throw-ins. But the average, I think it's normally between 40 and 60 throw-ins. You can also say how much time are you using on throw-ins. You can normally you're using at the throw-in itself, but also the following throw-in affected situation. You're using 15 to 20 minutes. The reason why I know it is because when I'm doing video analysis from Liverpool FC, I'm receiving the attacking and defending throw-ins just before we get the throw-in itself, and then the following situations that's affected by our throw-in movements.
Yeah.
And there are normally between 7.5 and 10 minutes each, so 15 to 20 minutes together. So there's a lot of people who talks about throw-ins as small margins or small gains, but it's actually very big gains. It makes a big difference.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Those numbers, that's a lot of restarts within the game, and if people aren't really taking advantage of that, like they would, a free kick or a corner or something, then you're probably missing out on a big opportunity.
You're missing out of a lot of things, and also because I think it's because it's been a cultural thing in football. We've been playing football for 140 years, but the best sign of that it's not been taken really serious throw-ins is that if you're looking at a match in the television, then if a player makes a bad throw-in or the team loses the ball after a throw-in situation, you won't hear the commentator say anything. Mm-hmm. But if you're losing the ball in the middle of the pitch with your feet, they'll say, hey, that was a bad pass. Or if you do it more than once, they'll say, you don't belong to that team or something like that. So it's really, I think throw-ins in general are really ignored.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then I'll go to that's one of the articles around the improvement, as I mentioned before, going from third last in the Premier League 17-18 season to number 1 in 18-19 season, improving 23%. But I'd just like to highlight how I'm working. I'm using a philosophy called the long, the fast, and the clever throw-ins. That's my own throw-in philosophy developed the last 16 years. And first of all, the long throw-in. Here I'm working on the players long throwing technique to make them throw further. Most players are improving 5 to 10 meters with my coaching, some up to 15 meters. I have some examples here from FC Midtjylland. I have the top guy here, Kian Hansen. He assisted in 4 seasons, not this season, but the last 4 seasons. FC Midtjylland scored 35 goals on long throw-in, so 8-9 goals per season. The guy, Kian Hansen, he started out with 30-70 before the technical training, and that was a very high throw-in. Then he improved to with 6 meters, but his 36.70 was a rocket throw-in. If we're going down to the 4th guy here, Andreas Paulsen started out with 24.25, and he improved to 37.90, so almost 14 meters, 30 meters and 65. Why should we do long throw-ins? Yes, I'll say perhaps 10% of all teams can really make it a set piece, threat or weapon. A little bit like Midtjylland did here or Stoke back in the days. But I'll say the reason why I'm coaching the long throw-in in all teams is because the longer throw-in you have, the greater throw-in area you'll have too, and then you have many more teammates to throw to. For example, I have the same numbers here, but look, for example, at Andreas Paulsen, number 4 here. He started out with 24.25 and a throw-in area of 923 square meters. That's the half circle you can throw in. And he improved to 37.90 and 2,256 square meters. So a big improvement. But also if you go down to Andy Robertson from Liverpool FC, he started out with 19 meters and 80. That's very short for a male adult football player. And it meant that every time Liverpool had a throw-in on the left side, it was really easy for the opponents to put Liverpool under pressure. And also, of course, Andy Robertson himself. But he has improved until now. He's throw-in to 27 meters. So even though he'll never be the world best thrower, if you're looking at the length, he's been improving his throwing area with more than 500 square meters. So no matter if you're doing the long throw-in as a set piece weapon, it's really important to see if your players can throw further, because it gives you many more options and it's harder for the opponents to put you under pressure. But in general, you can say that if you want to score on a long throw-in, it's really important to treat it as normal set piece. You have to put a lot of players in the penalty box. You can't only have 2 or 3, because then the chance is really low. You have to put in 5, 6, 7 players, put on the same pressure as sort of set pieces. Then you can say the longer, the faster and the flatter the throw-in is, the greater chance of scoring. I see some long throwers who are throwing way too high, and if it's too high, it's too easy for the goalkeeper to pick or to defend. I'm learning players to throw not only long, but also flat and fast, because it's more dangerous. A flat and fast throw-in is also much more dangerous when we're going to, and that comes later, the counter-attack throw-in. If it's flat, it's easy to work with. And then the end, the long throw-in threat can also unlock other opportunities. So yeah, but I'll say in 80 or 90% of all team I'm coaching, we're not using the long throw-in as a set piece weapon. It's more about improving the throwing area, so we have more opportunities. Then we have, I said that before, a longer throw-in gives a greater throwing area. For me, that's the most important thing. Then we go to the fast throw-ins. And first of all, the fast throw-ins, you can say that the faster you take your throw-in, the less marking of your players from the opponent. So you can say there's a big difference of getting the ball after 3 seconds or 7 seconds. Of course, I'm not saying that you have to throw fast every time, because sometimes it's really stupid to throw it fast into a pressure zone. So I'm learning my players how to, or when to throw fast and when to have patience. I have a lot of drills for that. The fast throw-in can also give counter-attack opportunities, because you can't be offside on a throw-in. So you can't use that every time, but it can really be a good opportunity for the team, especially when you're learning your players to have the right running patterns, because it's really important to run in the right way as a attacking midfielder or striker if you want to utilize the counter-attack fast throw-in. And then the last thing, when the opponents have a throw-in, it's also really important to mark fast, because then it's like the opposite. When we're having it fast too, if you're marking the opponents fast, then you can make it harder for the opponents to keep possession, and of course also create chances and score goals after throw-ins. But it's not just to say you have to mark it. It's also a lot about body control, body signals, communications, but it's also about different kinds of pressure. Sometimes we want to pressure 100%, sometimes we want to delay the pressure, sometimes we pressure at some triggers, but it's also about the marking. Sometimes we're marking man-man, sometimes we are marking zonal, sometimes we're trying to make sandwiches or flexible sandwiches. So that's the fast throw-in. And then we're having the last thing in my long, fast, and clever throw-in philosophy, the clever throw-in. And here I'm working with improving the players' throwing intelligence to make smart decisions. The way I'm making them do smart decisions is I'm starting from the very basics. I'm learning the players, of course, to throw longer, throw more precise, but also basic space creation, because that's the most important thing in keeping possession, creating chances to score goals after throwing situations, is space creation. So improving the players' throwing intelligence. Of course, doing the basic first, but then I'm also working with 3 zones on the pitch, at the own penalty area, the middle area, and then the final third. And I'm having 40 to 50 different throwing tools. It's important for me to say it's not like a playbook in American football where we're just doing one thing. No, in each zone, the players have 10, 12, 15 different tools. So for example, if the opponent's having throwing in the middle of the pitch, and we're trying to create space in the near area towards the thrower, if we can't do that, we know that we can unlock space in 3, 4, 5 other places when we have a throw-in in the middle of the pitch, and also in different ways. So that's how the throwing tool works. And then it's also important for me to say that I'm also working with individual assignments. You can also call it throwing superpowers, because some players are fast, some players are good at protecting the ball, some players are good at creating space for their teammates, and some have a good first touch. So we're really using their individual throwing superpowers. And then on top of everything, the players are using their own creativity and ideas and fantasy. So instead of only working with 40 to 50 tools on the pitch, we're actually having, in theory, millions of options when we're having a throw-in. So yeah.
How long are you spent on like the creative throw-ins? So how long would you take in a session to work on your different ideas with the players and things like that?
Yeah, I'll say that before I'll go into that, I'll first explain how I'm normally make contracts with teams. First, I have what I call an inspirational visit, and also you can also use that as a amateur team, a youth club, amateur club. And an inspirational visit is normally a 2-day visit where I'm giving them a little bit of everything. So the general things, so they can learn the basic things. Then I'm also having a 3-4 visits contract. I'm having that with a club like Ghent from Belgium. And that's 3-4 visits in a season. And then I'm also doing a little bit of video analysis. And then I'm having also full season contracts. I'm having that with teams like Ajax and Liverpool. And I'm visiting them 6 to 7 times per season. When we look at the visit itself, let's say I'm coaching 3 days. Then I'm normally arriving on a Sunday. Then I'm coaching Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, leaving again Thursday. In a normal, let's say I've been working with Liverpool or Ajax in a few months, I'll have 20 to 40 minutes per session. It's a little bit different if I'm having an inspirational visit where I want to learn people a lot. Then of course I can use 60 or 90 minutes in a session, and also doing talks and so. But in the clubs, I'm only if I've been working with a club for a while, I'm only using 20 to 40 minutes on the training. Then it's also important for me to say that some people think that I'm only working with the fullbacks in the technique. No, most of the times I'm working with either a big group of players or all the players. It could be with, I'm having perhaps 9 players, then we're playing a 4 versus 4 with a thrower in a small square, or with a 4 versus 4 with a secret thrower. And then after 20 minutes, we are changing the teams, 9 new players, and then I've been coaching 18 players for for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
It could also be an interval game on a narrow pitch, 5 versus 5 on big goals with the goalkeepers. It's a narrow pitch, so we have a lot of throw-ins. We are doing the basic throw-ins movement, but also some of my tools. And then after 2 minutes, we're changing the team. So it's 5 and 5 new players. So all in all, 22 players. I could also do 11 versus 11 on a full pitch. And then we're taking perhaps 5 throw-ins in each of the 3 zones. So 15 throw-ins where we are playing the situation out. So you can say you can compare my training with normal football training. Of course, sometimes I have some really specific throwing things where we're doing technique, but mostly it looks a little bit like normal football training with passes with the feet, scoring on goals, small goals, and so it's not like normal set piece training done on a Friday before the game Saturday. So yeah.
You then working a lot with the other coaches, say an in possession coach working on forward movement or something like that. So you're building other themes then into what you're trying to get out of the throw-ins.
We're building in other things, and it's really important for me to say that I'm always trying to fitting my coaching into the playing style of the club. Of course, there are some things who are the same from visit to visit. Let's just say 70% of my training is perhaps the same in Ajax and Liverpool or Ghent, Atlanta United, but 30% or so I really fit it into the teams or clubs playing style. Mm-hmm. And then I'm always communicating with the manager, head coach, the assistant coaches, the players, but also the analysis people if the club has someone in analysis, or the physical coaches, because it's really important to, if the team has been playing on Sunday, it's not good that I'm having a 5 versus 5 interval game with high intensity the day after. Mm-hmm. So I'm really using a lot of time on fitting my training into the club and communicating. But of course, it's if you're working a lot with a club and doing a lot of video analysis, it's even easier than if you're just visiting once. So yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. For the longer throw-ins, you were saying, that's trying to increase the range, the semicircle of where the player can throw. I mean, what does that kind of training look like? And have you took anything from your athletics background into developing that?
I'll say that first of all, it's primarily my own experience. Mm-hmm. As a long throwing expert, my own experiments also with the video, but of course I've been having a lot of knowledge from athletics, but that's more like general knowledge. Then I've also been taking a lot of things from the bobsleighing, and that's of course the innovation part, but also video analysis. We did several thousand video analysis per season of a bobsleigh start, so really used to looking at small things. But also, that's the long throw-in, but I'm also using a lot of things from basketball in my fast and clever throw-in space creation, because I've been playing a lot of basketball myself. I still play street basketball once in a while, and if you have that on your backbone, all the knowledge from there, you can really utilize it in football too, to create space. So I try really to pick knowledge from different places. And it's also important for me to say, when I'm coming to a club, doesn't matter if it's pro, amateur, or youth club, it's not like I'm coming and being the big throw-in guru, even though I'm probably the one who knows most about throw-ins in the world, because every day I'm learning from coaches, from players. I had a time, it was in Ajax in the summer, where one of the coaches was saying to me, I think it was a great exercise, this 5 versus 5 for the fast throwing, but and you did 5 passes to score a point. But I think it would be even better if you took in small goals, because it would be even more entertaining for the players. And I said, hey, why not? Let's try it. It was fantastic. Also had a training in Liverpool where we did an exercise where it did just parallel into the pitch. And then after a few minutes, one of the players said, shouldn't we do it in a 45-degree angle instead? It would be much more match relevant. And then I said, hey, let me think about it. And I thought about it in a few seconds. And then I said, you're totally right. It would be much better. So So I'm really trying to take things not only from different sports, but also from different people. Sometimes I get a question in a chat like this in a webinar, and then I'm going out from a webinar being, wise. I've learned more. So I just try to. I think we can learn from each other no matter who we are. So I just try to pick up everything. Of course, you have to take things you think that are relevant, but I think you can often reach more and get more also as a normal football coach if you're open-minded and try to listen instead of speaking yourself.
Yeah, I agree with that. We just had a question sent in kind of off the back of the space creation, and it's what are the principles that you use around space creation for throw-ins?
Yeah, I can just say, of course, I have a lot of secrets here that I'm only sharing with my club. But of course, I'll share them in my coming book about the long, fast, and clever throw-ins, also in my online courses. But I can just say, in general, it's about creating space. And what I see often in football, also in pro football, and it's even worse, of course, in amateur and youth football, but especially in pro football, I often see that the players are standing still. Either they're not moving or only moving 1 or 2 meters. If you're only moving 1 or 2 meters, you aren't creating space for yourself, but you aren't also not creating, you're not creating space for your teammates, because if you want to create space for your teammates, you want to move 10, 12, 15, 20 meters. So, and what I see often is that people are just throwing the ball down the line, and that's also in pro football. We normally, with Liverpool, we are 20, 30, 40% better than our opponents at throw-ins under pressure in every game. But also have like totally wild examples. In our first match against Spurs, Tottenham this season, Premier League, we had 9 out of 9 throw-ins under pressure. 100%. It's not happening often. Normally we're around 70%. I think we hit the 100% mark 5 times in my 2 seasons. So, but Tottenham had only 4 out of 16 and 25% possession. It was because if Tottenham couldn't throw it fast to a teammate, they had no real strategy. So they just threw it down the line. And for example, it's not only in England, it's everywhere in the world. I also we had a game in the first match in the Champions League last season against Bayern Munich. We had around 70%, fine for us. Normally we have between 65 and 85 or so, but Bayern Munich had only 28%, and it was the same as with Spurs. If they couldn't throw it fast, they just threw it down the line. And you should think that here, okay, 2 years after it was league with my job in Liverpool, then everyone is smarter and doing things different. No, I just saw a few days ago Dortmund against Bayern, and it was just, sorry for saying, but just horrible to see how the players were on and on and on, putting their own teammates in high pressure situations. And it was clear for me to see that the Bayern and Dortmund players didn't have the basic understanding about how you create space and keep possession, create chance after throw-ins. So, but you can, from my point of view, I see a lot of clubs who have billions of pounds in budgets, and they are just totally world class with their feet in the middle of the pitch. But when it comes to throwing situations, it's a very low level. Sometimes I'm seeing Sunday League football teams who are better at throw-ins than some of the teams in Premier League and Champions League, and I think that's scary.
Yeah, that does seem to be the default, though. Is down the line, I feel like as a kid, you almost get told that if you can't play it to feet or something early, just down the line will do.
Yeah.
So, as you said, you probably got to stay away from that.
Yeah, and it's really important for me to say that I don't blame the coaches, the managers, the players, and it doesn't matter if it's pro, amateur, or youth football, because the challenge is there's a lack of knowledge. They don't know how to do it. And of course, I'm not the first one thinking about throw-ins. Other people had some ideas, but I'm the first one in the world thinking about throw-ins every day, every hour, also dreaming about throw-ins. And that's the reason why I have all these different tools and know how it's working, because I've been thinking about this every day for 16 years. And normally, if you're a manager or a coach, you're perhaps thinking about the throw-ins if you're thinking about them only a short time. But the challenge is that throw-ins are often a really high pressure situation, and you can say on one hand it's really difficult to throw with your hands and keep possession, create chances, because if you don't know how to do it, it's like an unsecure thing because you're throwing from 2.5 meters up in the air. But you can also say on the other hand, actually, if you know what to do, a throw-in can be really precise, and with a throw-in you can also throw over obstacles. You can't really do that so easy with your feet on the ground. So you can say that the teams who don't know what to do and don't have the knowledge, it's a horrible situation. And the teams who know what to do and what they can do, it's of course it'll never be perfect, all the time. But can you go from having possession in let's say 3 or 4 out of 10 situations under pressure to have it like Liverpool 7 out of 10? It makes a big difference in a match, but over a season it makes a total gigantic difference.
Yeah. It's such a good talking point how you've worked with different staff, different coaches, whether it be at Liverpool or Atlanta or the other clubs you've worked with. We get like a vast range of coaches coming on the webinars, which is great from different levels of the game. Do you think, and this was a question emailed in by Stuart in advance, he says, do you think that the dribble pass rule for restarts in like small-sided games within training is kind of limited players both in terms of their technique and understanding of throw-ins?
Yeah, I just have to understand that question. Are you asking me if the coaches should play more with throw-ins in training, or?
Yeah, we went through a bit of a phase where we wanted to develop better dribblers, passers of the ball in terms of their decision making. But obviously, a trade-off of that is a lot less throw-ins. So you probably see at youth level a lot more fouls.
Yeah, I can understand why you're doing this, because if you don't understand the throw-in mechanisms and don't have throw-in knowledge and know what to do, and if you're only you see that in pro football, if you're doing throw-ins the wrong way, you're having a lot of duels up in the air, and that doesn't make you a better passer with your feet and a better dribbler. But if you know the throw-in knowledge and know what to do, the youth coaches also know what to do, then you can have a fantastic possession already after the first throw-in if you have been creating space, but also if you are throwing to the feet or into a space you can run to the ball. So I think that you can easily combine the ambition of being a better dribbler, better passer with your feet, and be a better throw-in taker, have a better throw-in team. So. But I just think that you just have to do the basics. One of the things I'm recommending all coaches, but especially youth coaches, is to start with the very, very basics. If you're starting with some drills where you're doing throw-in position to the feet from like 7-8 meters from the thrower and then up to 15 meters. That's short middle distance. Why shouldn't you rehearse it in 4 meters? Yes, of course you can do a short throw-in on 4 meters if your teammate isn't marked. But the challenge is if you're throwing to a teammate who's standing 4 meters from you and he's under pressure, you'll probably get under pressure if you're getting return pass as a thrower. You don't necessarily have to do that, but you're really getting under pressure. So that's some of the basic mistakes in football, also in youth football, is that you are first of all throwing unprecise to the knees, to the hip, to the chest, but you're also, if you're making a return pass, that you're coming too close to the thrower because the thrower, the receiver of the return pass hasn't got much time. So my recommendations is always that doing some precision exercises to the feet. Of course, you can do it with cones and so, but it's even better with players. Try to make them move before the throw-in. It's really good for your team. And I also say it's not ready now, but in a short while I'm giving a free exercise on my newsletter. You can find it on. You can sign up on my homepage, but that'll be I'll give the best 4-step exercise for throw-in possession, creating space, Yeah, so that's my recommendation, that you're working on the near and middle distance throw-in position to the feet. Then I also recommend that you're trying to make your players create space by moving 10, 12, 15, 20 meters, and try to use that space to keep possession, or even perhaps create a chance to score a goal. And then, of course, if you're doing that with your players, no matter if they are kids, youth players, amateur players, or pro players, then you have to have patience with the players, because you're not learning everything in 1 week. But you can also ask yourself as a coach, would you rather lose the ball after you try to create space somewhere on the pitch, or would you rather lose the ball just throwing the ball down the line and hoping to win the duel? I'll say I'll prefer the first thing. So first of all, try to work on your short middle distance throw-in precision to the feet, and let your players try to create space, and then have patience with them, because it's really important if you want to improve your throw-ins.
Great stuff. George, was there any other questions in the chat there?
No, I had one though for myself. I mean, what's the kind of reception that you would get? Let's say you just started at Liverpool, your first session, looking at throw-ins. I mean, what's the reception from the players like? How do they take that in initially?
I'll say, if you're asking all players, would rather play with your feet or would you rather throw with your hands? They'll all say we'd rather play with our feet, because that's the thing you love. But you also have to say that throw-ins are so a big part of football, so you have to really work with it. What I would recommend, and you probably know that yourself as players or coaches here, that it's really important to give the players the why. Why is this important? You have to motivate the players before you do the exercise. And I can tell exactly what I said to the players in Liverpool FC. You saw the picture yourself earlier in my presentation, standing in front of the Liverpool players. I said to the Liverpool players, there are normally between 40 and 60 throw-ins in a match. Most teams have possession in under 50% of the circumstances or occasions when you have a throw-in under pressure where the players are marked. If you had the same percentage with your feet of possession, then you'll only be playing Sunday league football. I also said to them, I'm not going to make you into Stoke number 2. We're not going to do a lot of long throw-ins towards the opponent's goals. After me, then Jurgen Klopp came, and he said directly after me, we had a fantastic season last season, 17-18 season. 4 places in Premier League, Champions League final, but we were so bad at the throw-ins. I tried to do something. We tried to do something, but it didn't really work. We brought in Thomas. He knows a lot about throw-ins, and I'm 100% sure that he can help our team to improve the throw-ins. That was like 2 minutes of motivation or talk or giving the why. And of course, it made Liverpool players more motivated. I try to do that in all my clubs, and I can just say that Andy Robertson Robo, like a month after my first training session, it was before a national match for Scotland. He said in the press conference, one of the big differences is that after we've been coaching with Thomas, is now we switch on the throw-in. So, of course, every time I try to do my best to motivate the players. And I think that's one of our most important tasks for our players, because if we want to make them learn something, they have to be motivated. And they have to be motivated. They have to know the why. Of course, you don't have to say it before each and every drill, but if you're working with a new area they haven't worked before, they'll work much better. If they know the why. So yeah,
I think that's been like a running theme in our previous webinars, Thomas, with providing a bit of rationale and kind of terms that players will kind of engage and understand and give you a bit of buy-in. So throwing some stats out and giving some relativeness to comparing it to a different scenario in a game is great, and certainly one that coaches on the webinar can use. Neil's fired a question in saying, have you used the throw-ins with the younger age groups at Liverpool, and is something that should be taught correctly at a young age?
Yeah, I'll say that again. In every club I'm in, I'm using 80-90% time on the fast and clever throwing. So that's more like the tools, the basic space creation, understanding when to throw fast, when to have patience. But I'm also using sometimes on the long throwing. And in Liverpool, I'm working with the U16, U18, U23s. I also had, I think it was week 44, where I had a whole week of education for all the Liverpool FC coaches, all down from U10. And of course, there are different things you can use in different age groups. But I really like to work with all the club age groups in the clubs, because let's say we just had, for example, Nico Williams from Liverpool FC, who played a lot in the U18. Then he came to U23s, even though he's young. And now he's been having matches at the first team in Liverpool and the Premier League. And if he hadn't learned anything about throw-ins, it would be really hard for a player like Nico Williams to come in, because especially as a right fullback, he's taking a lot of throw-ins. So I really love to work with the youth teams too. Also in Ajax, I'm also working with young Ajax. That's the young second team in Ajax, also U16s and so. So I really love when I'm coming to the clubs to work with young people, and I love it myself too. I work with all the way down from U6. I worked with a U6 team in Greenland. I was there for a motivational talk for the Greenland government, but I also work with boys, girls from U10, U12, U15, also amateurs, women, men, pros. So I just love to work with throw-in. So I think it's important to work with the players from a young age. Of course, U10 shouldn't do the same training as professional players, but you can easily introduce things like throwing precision to the feet. Also try to make them move, and so, because if you're disappointed over the throwing quality as a coach, as a youth player, instead of being disappointed of the players, you should perhaps ask yourself, how much work have I done with the throw-ins instead? Because we expect the players to be good with their feet, but the only reason why they can be good with the feet is because they've been starting with short passes as a 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old when they started football. Most of the players I'm working with, both in academy and pro, they haven't been coaching throw-ins at all in their whole life. So you can easily start with that as a coach for kids or youngsters.
Brilliant. Got another question here from Keith. Is the importance in distance and accuracy a result of teaching technique or strength training, or a combination of both? And then what's the average timescale that you'll see results if you're consistently training?
I'll say that the most important thing, I'm primarily or only focusing on technique training. I'm not making the players go down in the weight room, because I don't want them to gain 5 kilos, because it's influencing on other things in football, like general movement and so. But the players who've been improving 5 to 10 meters normally and up to 15 meters is only because of technical training. Of course, you can do some strength exercises like medicine ball throwing with the right technique, or flexibility. If I have to choose between strength and flexibility, I'll choose flexibility all day. But I really try to coordinate that with the physical coaches in the clubs, because I think it can be a little bit dangerous sometimes to give physical advice and then not be there. So I really recommend that you're doing that with a physical coach or someone who knows about physical training. But again, I'll always choose flexibility from strength. And the reason why flexibility is really good is because you can see that the best long throwing takers, the best can take their upper arms way behind their head, because they're getting a longer work way, and then they can utilize more energy to the ball. But I see a lot of players who are really strong, big chest muscles, but some of them are really unflexible. It means that even though they're strong, they can only take their upper arms to their head, and it means they have a really short work way. So again, my training is primarily the 30 different technical aspects and video analysis. And then if I have to choose between a physical thing, I think that flexibility is much more important than strength.
Brilliant. And then one more question here from Matthew. Do you have a memorable goal that a team have scored using your training, or a play that you have set up?
Yeah, I think I mentioned a little bit earlier, but Liverpool has scored 13 goals after throw-in situations this season until now, and I have some. Yeah, I can't really reveal who it was, but for example, we scored 3 goals after throw-ins from our own penalty area this season. And if you can do that, if you can play out of that really hard pressure, then it's like perhaps my best throw-ins. But there's not so many people who are seeing these throw-ins because they're just seeing that Liverpool are scoring 10 seconds later. But of course, for example, the 2 goals this season against Wolverhampton and Spurs, the winning goals came after throw-ins, and of course it got a lot of attention. So I won't say it makes me more proud than the secret throwing goals, but of course it's always fantastic to see when we're scoring goals after throw-ins. But I'll also say, let's say we're just having a pretty normal possession after throw-in when we're really under pressure, where we're like perhaps waiting 10 seconds to create the right space, and then we're just doing it fantastic. That also makes me real proud, because we have to remember, if you lose the ball after throwing, you're often caught out of balance, and there's a risk of the opponent scoring there. And 3 of the 13 goals we scored after throw-in situations, that was after the opponents had a throw-in, where we did some specific pressure. And so yeah, I'm really proud every time we make a good throw-in.
Good answer. We've got a question here from Craig, and he asks, how much involvement do you have in defending against throw-ins?
I have a lot of involvement in the basic defending against throw-ins. For example, when I'm working with the fast throw-in, I'm having like exercises to move fast, to either throw fast or wait. But in this exercise, there's also built in defending from the defending team. And here I'm working with how to defend, how to pressure, how to communicate, how to use body signals, how to use different kind of pressure and marking. And that's like the general throwing intelligence. Here it's just when the opponents have a throw-in. Then of course in a club like Liverpool, there's a lot of data around when to pressure, how to pressure, and of course it's like building on to my knowledge and my training. But back to the situation itself, it will always be, no matter if it's throw-ins, a normal pass or free kick, it's always the players who are taking the decisions and doing the movements. But they can only do that, in my opinion, if they have the basic training and the knowledge and the tools. And so I think that I have a big, really much involvement in the defending of the throw-ins with the training itself. So yeah.
Brilliant. Big thanks again for joining us this afternoon, Thomas. Really insightful. I think you put a lot of emphasis on why we should look at throw-ins in a little bit more light, and why they're so important. Where's the best place for people to reach you?
Yeah, first of all, I recommend, I mentioned just in the start, but go to my homepage, thomasgrønnemark.com. It's brand new. You can read about my throwing coaching, my coming book, my coming online courses, and so other things. I also have a blog and so. But you can also find me I have a YouTube channel. Just search Thomas Grønnemark. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter. Find me on Instagram. So I just try to, if people reach out to me, I try to answer them and write with them or speak with them. So I'll just encourage people to do one of these things. Yeah.
And what we'll do when we follow this up, we'll drop some of those links in there, so then everyone has that there for them. Brilliant. So yeah, thanks for joining us again. It's been really good. And again, if you aren't following us on Twitter, add the Halftime Review. We also now have a YouTube channel too, which has our past webinars on there. So look for the Halftime Review on there. And brilliant. Thanks again, Thomas. Really appreciate you coming on this afternoon.
You are absolutely welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
everyone for joining us.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
everyone.
You're welcome. Bye bye. Bye bye.